Hey, everybody! Welcome to the Allman in the Morning Newsreel, and boy, do we have a pile of stuff to talk about today, including that pile of crap that some on the left are trying to superimpose on those of us who actually say, hey, that Arizona immigration law isn't such a bad idea considering that the feds have abdicated their responsibility to enforce immigration laws. Well, now it's all being compared to Nazi Germany and what the Germans did to the Jews. And obviously, we know what the Germans did to the Jews, and that was discriminate and kill them. This immigration law is not designed to discriminate or kill people who are here illegally. It's designed to catch people who are here illegally. And by the way, did you know that that law does not call for law enforcement officers to pull over somebody just because they think they're illegal immigrants? That's not the point of the bill. There might be some guys, some cowboys who are out there trying to do that, but you got to have some degree of pretense to pull these people over or approach them that goes beyond the color of their skin. Read the bill. That's all we're asking people to do. And it's so odd to hear people comparing this now to Nazi Germany and everything else, because I thought it was bad to compare things to Nazi Germany and all the rest. I thought that was bad. Oh, I know. It's only bad if you are a right-winger talking about comparing things to Nazi Germany, but not bad if you're a left-winger. Go figure. Some folks who called into the show today, or at least one of them, said that we hate Mexicans. I'll tell you what, there's evidence, ample of it, that, well, there's 14 million pieces of evidence, really, not to mention the legal immigrants in this country, that proves that this country doesn't hate anybody. This is a great country, and you can prove that by just looking at the numbers of immigrants who come here legally, and the ones who are illegal here who are being tolerated. So this country is far from being hateful on that. You know what people are hateful about is the Happy Meal. Yeah, in Santa Clara, California, go figure, a county supervisor wants to ban Happy Meal toys and other premium toys in fast food that may have fat or high-calorie offerings in it. So basically they're saying that you parents are too stupid to monitor your kids' intake of fattening food, and so you need to be monitored by the government. Beautiful thing. Crazy thing. By the way, speaking of monitoring by the government, the Supreme Court now going to be taking up the idea that there's a law right now in California that bans the sale of violent video games to minors. Well, the Supreme Court will decide whether or not that's constitutional or not. My personal opinion is, listen, I don't need the federal government to do the parenting for me, and I don't want the federal government to do the parenting for me because I know the federal government, and I know what the federal government will do, that once it gets its foot in the door, it's going to run amok. And so I hope the Supreme Court actually strikes this law down and lets Hoosiers buy violent video games for their kids. I mean, I never did it, and I know a lot of you don't do it, but we don't need the government to tell us how to parent, bottom line. Also, speaking of parenting, Mike Huckabee and Rosie O'Donnell get into a discussion about gay adoption. Now, bear with me here because I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me on that. I've never actually thought I'd ever agree with Rosie O'Donnell, but Huckabee supported an Arkansas law, and I think this ought to be left up to the states. So if the states want to pass it, fine with me. Arkansas law that banned adoption of children by gay couples. Well, the law was eventually struck down as being unconstitutional. But essentially, states ought to be allowed to pass these laws if they want to. But on a larger issue, what do you really prefer? Do you prefer that children remain in orphanages or in foster care as opposed to being in a home where there's a strong possibility that even though these people are of the same sex, they still are providing a stable home? Even though it's not the kind of home that we would want our kids in, and even though it's not the kind of family that we actually support necessarily, man and wife, mother, dad, that's kind of what we want. But do we have really the power to choose, and is it any of our business? And is that the alternative? We would rather have the kids foster care or perpetually in orphanage as opposed to in a loving home, because there are plenty of those that are operated by gay couples. You know what? In my opinion, and I say this all the time on Allman in the Morning, liberty is difficult. Free will is difficult. It means we have to put up sometimes with language, things, and people we don't necessarily support. But if we're going to be conservative and we're going to be consistent, We got to be able to stand up for liberty on all accounts, even when we don't necessarily like the people exercising those liberties. Yeah, I don't know. You can disagree with me. I totally understand. Also, check it all out. All the sound there. Jack Cafferty, by the way, going off on President Obama over his abdication of responsibility as it relates to enforcing immigration law. So check that out on Allman's Electric Stove, sponsored by my brother, Dave MacArthur, at MacArthur's Bakery. Thanks a lot for listening to Allman in the Morning. We'll talk at you tomorrow.